A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers, Chandigarh edition. The topics that we are going to cover are mentioned over here. Now, today's newspaper starts with the world section, then it covers explained, and then the first or the front page of the newspaper. Now, coming to the world section, the first news that we encounter is actually here. So, tensions between China and Taiwan are going on. So, 28 Chinese jets in Taiwan's defense zones, right? So, tension is brewing between the two nations. Moving on, previously we were talking about a possible meeting between between the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Putin. The idea was that Russia or Putin wants weapons for the war, Ukraine war that is going on. And why would the North Koreans give weapons to Russia? Because it is possible that Russia can provide North Korea certain other benefits. For example, it is very isolated, its economy is very weak, so things of economic necessities that may be provided, technology for its missile program that may be provided, or even for its satellite program, right? So that is the possible arrangement between these two countries. I keep saying possible because we really don't know what these two leaders really spoke or discussed. Okay. Now, in the context of the Ukraine-Russia war, US, European and Ukrainian officials have expressed concerns that Russia may be building its missile arsenal, weapons arsenal, or we can also say strategic weapons arsenal. So this may go beyond the pre-war levels and beyond what has been agreed between the two countries of US and USSR, which eventually became Russia. So what agreement took place? I think that is important. So we visited this website over here, and this is basically telling us about arms control agreements between US and Russia. So there is one, SALT, which was in 1969. This is Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, right? So that is the full form of SALT. So obviously it makes sense, right? US will make so many weapons, Russia will make so many, not beyond this. So SALT, then it is revisited, SALT 2 is there. Then there is START, which is Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. Strategic arms, basically when we use this term, it is associated with nuclear weapons. So START 1, START 2, START 2 is 1992, START 3. Then latest we have is SORT, which is the Moscow Treaty. SORT full form is Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty. Then we have the new START Treaty, which is covering ICBMs, SLBMs, heavy bombers assigned to nuclear missions. Okay, now this link I have shared with you on the Telegram. I think this is important. You must know about it. For the time being, let it be prelims, but also from mains also, we should keep an eye on this topic. Okay, so I've already shared, so I'm closing this link. Beijing, that is capital of China, appoints envoy in Kabul. So there'll be diplomatic presence in Kabul. Kabul is Afghanistan and it was taken over by Taliban. Why are we talking about it? Why is it significant? Because the government which is controlled by Taliban in Afghanistan, Taliban control Afghanistan, it is isolated. Whole countries do not want to engage with a militant organization. But we see China making the first step by appointing an envoy with Kabul. So normal talks, routine talks, etc. will take place between Afghanistan and China. So that's all that is mentioned over here. So one thing is that it will help provide recognition and legitimacy to Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. So that is one thing. And that is the main thing. So that is there. But second thing I think we should be concerned is not mentioned in the news, Indian perspective. India has not really been engaged at full scale level, while China is deeply, increasing its engagement with Afghan Taliban. So we have our strategic interests in Afghanistan. India has strategic interests. So these may be compromised because China is emerging as all-weather friend with Afghanistan as well. Okay, Libya floods is again there in the news. A big tragedy has taken place. Okay, so this is because of the storm Daniel, which swept across the Mediterranean Sea, battering its coastline. It's all that. Thousands still missing. Then Morocco earthquake that happened previously this week, so that is also in news. This is an interesting news, and I would like to focus from Indian context. So it is saying China's full-time kids move in with parents amid job scarcity. So full-time kids. So basically, what it is trying to say is that, with children in the family, the children want to go to different cities, different places for the search of job. They go to the job markets. It happens in India also. That is the normal trend. But because of job security and add to this inflation, etc., difficulty in getting housing, so the children choose to live with their families, with their parents. Right, so that is the trend that is happening in China. This is post the COVID job market, which is a depressed job market. This is also indicative that Chinese economy is not doing well. So, it doesn't bode well for India as well as the world economy. Okay, so this we talk from China's perspective, a change that is taking place in their society because of the job market. Now I want to focus on India now. So there was a very interesting observation previously I came across, that in urban areas, we are seeing a decline in nuclear families. We are seeing emergence of more and more joint families. And the reason is same, what is happening in China. So because of expensive housing, right? So expensive housing, etc. Children in urban areas prefer to live with their parents. So that is a trend that is emerging in India as well. So we are seeing rise in joint families in urban India, while at the same time we see nuclearization of rural families. So rural areas, because of scarcity of jobs, depressed economic environment, people are pushed out. So there is a push migration that takes place from rural India to urban areas. Okay, explain section. Nipah cases reported in Kerala. Yesterday we covered Nipah virus. Okay, what makes this virus deadly? Okay, so Nipah disease is caused by a virus. The animal host, the vector of this disease is the fruit bat, which is also known as the flying fox. Flying fox is nothing but the fruit bat. Now, how can this disease transmit? It can transmit with close contact with infected animals, so that can happen. It can be because of secretion of virus on fruit trees, fruits, date palm, etc. Right, so in contact with the animals, infected animals, even on the fruits on which the bats were there. And human to human transmission is also possible through close, intimate contact. Now, why are we so concerned? 45 of the 66 people who were infected. So 66 were infected, 45 of them are dead. So it has a high mortality rate. Now, what is the Kerala government doing in this regard? Yesterday we covered contact tracing, containment zones, contact tracing, isolation. And they're working on monoclonal antibodies. So at least some medicine has to be given. They don't have the medicine, but at least something has to be given. Operation Polo is there in news. So what is Operation Polo? It is the Indian Army operation in Hyderabad, post which Hyderabad became a part of the Union. So this happened 75 years ago. That is why we're talking about it. Next, India supply chain opportunities. This is fairly important topic given that we are talking about the China plus one strategy of the uh, corporates. So the let's say Apple, etc., US-based companies, they were operating in China, but because of the geopolitical tensions like that of Taiwan, China-Taiwan tension, because of non-transparency, capital control norms, making difficult for capital to go out of China. It is easy for it to come, but going out is difficult. So plus COVID. So US and other companies are already they are invested in China, and it is difficult to get out of it, but they are looking at hedging that risk by investing in other countries. So China plus one, so that they should not be entirely dependent on China. They should focus on another country also. Now, this another country can be India. We want that China plus one, that one should be India. But I'm telling you, the more favored countries are Vietnam and Philippines. Right? So Vietnam is grabbing more of the investment opportunities as compared to India. Right. So this we are going to discuss. In fact, I want you to prepare a short note on what is this China plus one strategy. Where does India stand in this regard? What needs to be done? Right? What makes India an attractive market? So this will be a very good approach for preparing this topic. Okay. So supply chain, I hope you understand. So first, it is telling us what is the supply chain. So supply chain basically means like when production takes place. So there is this raw materials, there is connectivity. So all of them combined together is part of the supply chain. China has a very well developed supply chain, making it very attractive to invest. While India doesn't stand, there is a lot of shortcoming over here. Okay, that is one thing. The definition of supply chain, you can get it from anywhere. It's mentioned over here also. Next, why is India considered an attractive supply chain hub? Why that China plus one, that one can be India? So I've jotted down these points over here. So one is cheap wages. Wages are less as compared to, let's say, US, etc. Then geographical location. India is right at the center of the Asia, South Asia. It is well connected with the sea routes, or we can say sea lanes of communication. So there is a lot of potential in that regard. I wanted to write Indian Ocean region over here. Okay. Then we do have natural resources on the land as well as on the shores of the Indian Ocean region, exclusive economic zones. So all these strategic materials, rare earths, etc., can be mined and domestically as well. Then we have a very good market, right? India is a big consumer. So if government has the right policies, makes it difficult for exports to come. So, it will incentivize Indian foreign companies to invest in India to make their operations in India, make in India basically. So India is a big market. So making something in India itself would make more sense for the corporates. Besides, a very important factor, stable macroeconomic and political framework. So macroeconomic means our currency is stable, our inflation is more or less fine, 6%. If you look at other countries, it is at 20%, 30%. So we are much better off. UK was at 10 plus 10, more than 10%, while we are at 6.8. The inflation is easing. Current account deficit is manageable. So currency will be stable. So stable macroeconomic environment plus political framework. We are a democracy. We have never had a military dictatorship like what is happening in, let's say, Thailand or Myanmar. So plus we are not engaged in war like China. China is looking into Taiwan, and it is entering into geopolitical tensions with the South China Sea region. So nothing of that sort in India. Okay, so you have the points, right? These are more than what's been mentioned over here. Next would be, what should India do? What should India do to be that plus one, to be that possible partner? Okay. So we need export-oriented FDI, first point. that India, it can be manufactured in India, it can be consumed by the Indians, but at the same time exported out of India. Fine. But to be export oriented, we have to be part of regional trade agreements like Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, like Asia Pacific Trade Agreement, like Trans Pacific Partnership. We are part of none of these. If any country is part of these agreements, and these are big blocks, they get preference in trade. Taxes, if trading is taking place within this, and the custom duties, etc., are much lower. So it's much more competitive. If any, so corporates would like to invest in these blocks rather than India. India hasn't really agreed to the terms of RCEP, APTA, or TPP. So we have to negotiate and try to become part of these arrangements. Okay. Then there is this origin norms also. So if the product is, even the raw materials are not from these countries, our exports to here would be at a disadvantage. What next? We need to improve infrastructure. If we want these companies to come here, we have to have the infrastructures. So then that is when the supply chain will actually develop. For this infrastructure, we can talk about road connectivity, shipping connectivity, availability of raw materials, right, and capacity enhancement of the ports. So that has to be done. We have Bharatmala, Sagarmala for this sector. And I would like to add one more point. I'm also telling you the shortcomings also. If you look at the logistics, by the way, we have logistics performance index, right? And if you look at the logistics cost per GDP, so we are at 14%, while other economies like China, US, etc., they are less than 10%, 8%, 6%. So we are not there as such. And one of the reasons for the logistics cost is regulatory framework. So that also needs to be improved. Regulatory compliances, etc. We need to do a lot more on ease of doing business setups. Then we have to bring in fiscal incentives, tax breaks, tax holidays, establishment of SEZs, special economic zones, which would make it attractive for the corporates, MNCs, to invest into India or attract export-led FDIs to India. Right, so these are the main points. Now we actually come to the front page. Tragedy took place in Kashmir Valley, where 3 officers, right, one CEO of the Rashtriya Rifles unit, one major, and one police, a DSP. So they were actually patrolling around a nala, a stream, and there they encountered terrorists. They came under firing and these terrorists were better placed. They had ambushed these officers and they got killed in action. Now, this again showcases that things are still far from normal in Jammu and Kashmir. Militancy is still there. It's very much there. Right. Previously, also, we heard militant attacks based on communal lines. So that also took place. Now, from geography perspective, since in Jammu and Kashmir is there in news and Pir Panjal is mentioned, so this happened in Pir Panjal region. What I would suggest is visit the map atlas, and you would come across these ranges in the Ladakh, in the Himalaya region, especially this part. So arrange the following in north-south and south-north order, right? That will really help you with your prelims. Next, IF takes delivery of C-295 transport aircraft. So you get it? C-295 aircraft is a transport aircraft. In fact, we have one more aircraft, C-130, which we keep talking, C-130 Hercules. You may have seen it on the from your roof also. So these are from the Boeing. So transport aircrafts normally have this C attached to it. Okay, so C-295 is being supplied by Airbus Space and Defense. Airbus Defense and Space. That is the name of the company. And these are being provided by Spain. Next, export demand low, farmers call for lifting of curbs on Basmati. I think headline is explanatory, right? So nothing more has to be done in this. So farmers want to export and tap into global markets. So export demand is less. The government has imposed restrictions on export. There is this agency known as APEDA, Agricultural Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. So they issue some certificates based on which the exports can be done. So the APEDA has been asked to restrict the release of the permits to export. So the farmers are saying that it is not going to help you with food security because basmati is not the food for the poor, it is food for the more elite sections of the population. Now, overall, if one wants to look at it from exam point of view, GS3, one can always talk about export policy with reference to agriculture. Why is it important? What needs to be done to promote exports of agriculture? What are the challenges? So that way you can prepare for mains. This news, this one, Gogoi, the opposition claims Assam CM's wife, Himanta's wife, got central subsidy. The chief minister rejects charge. Okay, so I think simple. Chief minister's wife is operating a business. She got support from the central government. CM is denying it. We don't know if this really happened. But definitely this is a case of conflict of interest. And conflict of interest is covered in your GS4 ethics. So one can always talk about GS2 governance also. Now, what needs to be done in the case of conflict of interest? People are always going to talk, right? People are always going to talk. कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे लोगों का काम है कहना. So people will talk. People will raise allegations, especially when you are close to somebody in position of power. So what needs to be done? What steps need to be taken to mitigate the issue of conflict of interest? So if you look at it on these lines, then it is important for your exam. Again, misuse of government power. So Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab, so they were deputing teachers to ferry political party workers in Ludhiana, and this order was given by the district education officer, right? So obviously higher ups must have given him politically, so he has issued this order. So unethical conduct. Okay, now we come to the editorial page. So yes, so one article is about food inflation, and especially from the vegetable price. So we are seeing a bit of a decline over here, but upside risk to food inflation persist. So that is there, food inflation thing. Bharat name, so that is there, and so you can see which topics I'm going to cover. A cell and a sheep, dolly sheep. So these are the topics that we are going to cover over here. So let's cover the first one, and this I'm not doing it today. I want to cover this one, the news sharing. 16th Finance Commission to be constituted soon. So under Article 280 of the Constitution, the President is required to form a commission to look into the matters of finances. Right. So you can read Article 280. This provides for the Finance Commission. Okay. So basically, this article is not giving us anything actually. It is just saying that 16th Finance Commission will come. So this may be done. I was more interested if we know 15th Finance Commission. I want to discuss the 15th Finance Commission over here. And from there, we will get all this information easily. In fact, for the 16th Finance Commission, not even the terms of reference, the government issues terms of reference to the commission, that what all has to be done, what are the priority areas. So even that has not been issued. So it is pointless to discuss 16th Finance Commission at the moment. So 15th Finance Commission, this is the PIB which I shared with you early in the morning. Now, when we talk about the finance commissions, so 14th is important, but of particular interest, 15th is important. Now 16th will come. So let me first tell you what is the main thing that we are going to, what we're covering, main function of the Finance Commission. The main function is that Finance Commission says that, the union, there is union government and several state governments. So it says that from the central pool of taxes, the money that has been collected by the union government, how much of it will be retained by the center and how much of it will go to the states. Right. So how much of it will go to the states? Let me write it this way: union, states. So approximately 41% goes to the states, while 60% is retained by the center. Now this could be by the GST, IGST, IGST has this CGST and SGST, state component of GST. And so from this pool, how much of it, plus income tax collection is there, corporate tax is there, so some tax is specific to union. So of this, how much of will go to the state? So Finance Commission decides it. Finance Commission recommends it, and the government has to approve it. So 40% of this goes to the states. Now of this, how will this money go to? There are so many states. So how much of the money will go to a particular state? For example, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, right? So keep talking about different states are there. So how much money will go to a particular state? Okay, center has given 40% of its pool of reserves, pool of taxes to the states. But of this, how much will go to AP? How much will go to Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Punjab, Haryana, etc. So this for Finance Commission sets a formula for this, prescribes the norms. Now for the 15th Finance Commission, they came up with the criteria known as criteria, which was comprising of population. So more population, more money will go. Area, forest and ecology, income distance. Income distance is the states from all the states which is earning the highest revenue and the state which is earning the lesser in revenues. One is the highest. So let's say, highest, let's say Andhra Pradesh has the highest, Tamil Nadu lesser and least. So the gap between them is known as income distance. So more the gap, more revenue will come. So let's say Maharashtra collected much lesser than Andhra. So Maharashtra will get more share of revenue because there is a higher income gap. So higher the income gap, more money will go. The logic is that to bring in equity, in finances. Okay, tax and fiscal efforts. How much the governments are doing to collect taxes, fiscal prudence that is being followed, direct benefit fees, direct DBT transfer, all those things. So, and demographic performance. Okay, now here the biggest weightage is for the income distance, which is 45. So out of 100, 45% of the weightage is going to the income distance. Okay. Now, population one is a sore point. It was added in the 15th Finance Commission. It was not before this, the weightage on the population. Now, population being added would mean that UP and other states, the Bimaru states basically, which has high demographic dividend, high population growth. So they'll get more share of revenue as compared to states from the south. So this was a sore point. In fact, in 2018 mains, this question was asked. 15th Finance Commission was in 2018, somewhere around that time. Terms of reference had come, that is why UPSC asked it. You may also refer to the Drishti IAS webpage also. Right, so, but better presentation. Okay. Right, so this is the job of the Finance Commission, 15th Finance Commission. We have discussed the criteria, and also we have discussed that the highest weightage is to the income gap. Okay, now just last point that I want to discuss. Union giving to states combined, this is known as vertical allocation, while these are known as horizontal allocation. I'm drawing vertical lines, but I'm segregating horizontally. So these are horizontal allocations. difference between the incomes between different states, distribution between states. Okay, much in a name change. So we have an author, we have a professor of history from Delhi University. So name change of India, basically India, that is Bharat, Article 1. So using of Bharat. So what she's saying is that the name of the country reflects the cultural identity. Right. So Bharat may be better suited for what we call as India, Bharat, Hindustan, right? Okay. So Bharat may be a better word, better expression because it reflects the cultural identity, the historical and linguistic heritage. And it helps decolonize its self-image. So decolonize because this name is a European, given by the Europeans, because Megasthenes indica. So Greek, that is in 320s, around 300, 200 BC, that period. So we used to identify ourselves with Bharat or Jambu Dvipa or Aryavart. Okay, so Europeans gave us this name. British already used to call us with this name India. East India Company was formed in 1600s. So India word, they used to use it, then we adopted the same. Nothing beyond you are going to get in this article. Next, Ian Wilmot, the person who created the first cloned mammal known as Dolly. You can see her, Dolly. So this person passed away at the age of 79 this week. That is why this article is there. So he created the first cloned mammal. The idea was to cure genetic disorders. He wanted to work on this subject. So what we are getting over here is genetics. We're getting science and its applications. So that is one thing, curing genetic disorders, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, etc. Right, organ harvesting, all those things, creation of lab meat. So that is one thing. Then one can always connect it with ethics as well. Right, cloning designer babies, eventually in humans if it comes, and we want these qualities, that qualities in a baby. So designer babies. So man playing the role of God, becoming the creator. So that is as ethics, and ethics applied to a particular field is known as applied ethics. This article seems to be a critique of the one nation, one election, and it's basically saying it is a form of limited democracy. In fact, I also personally believe in this viewpoint. I feel elections should keep going on because political parties are more receptive to the people if elections, so they keep them on their toes, despite all the shortcomings that are there. But that is the truth, because that is the time of the elections, politicians actually meet the people and try to address their grievances. This one is important. Women should get more representation in politics, says President Murmu in Gujarat. So women in politics. So what is the representation of women in politics at the present moment? I'm not very sure if I have shared this with you. Yeah. So we, at the moment in the Lok Sabha, here it is. In 1999, we were at 9%. So that has been the average. Only in 2019, we are at 14.4%. Now think about it. What is the percentage of women in the population? Around 50%. So of this, only 14.4% is reflected. And it was much lesser before this. Now, don't you think it's a kind of a bias against the women? So that may be a possible scenario. Women having lesser say in the political affairs of the country. Okay. Then we can always talk about women in the legislative assemblies of the states. So we don't get an aggregate figure, but if you look at it, you get an idea. The maximum is 14.4%. Arunachal is only 5%. There is 3% in Karnataka. So it's much, much lesser actually when we look at the level of states. So women in politics is not just, Lok Sabha, but also members of legislative assemblies. And we can always talk about the panchayats. In panchayats, minimum at least 1/3 of the seats have to be reserved for the women, at least, because there are certain states which have actually advocated greater reservation. So up to 50% reservation is also there for the women. Now, why is this important? Why do we need more women in politics? This is something that can be straightforward asked in your mains paper, right? So that is there. So women in the position of leadership and how they can shape the politics, shape the policy making within the country, bring in more diversity. So many things are can bring in women's perspective in policy making. So issues like public safety, sexual harassment. So these things may be addressed in a much better way. Okay, so these are basic things. Now, I want to add one more thing with reference to women empowerment. Now, when we talk about women empowerment, there are 3 L's. One is learning, so women getting education. Labor, women getting an employment. So you have seen when women are in the labor, there is an overall improvement in the incomes of the household, learning outcomes, healthcare. So that is there. And leadership, so women in leadership. So there are these 3 L's of women empowerment: learning, labor, leadership. Now we come to the economy section. So government's car battery recycling project gets traction as top EV makers sign up. It's simple. There is in 2022, the government released battery waste management rules. Now this is GS3, by the way, right? So this is a part of GS3, be it economy, be it environment, doesn't matter, right? It is still GS3. Okay. So I'll tell you what are the key components of the battery waste management rules. So what this article is saying that these companies have registered under the BWMR rules. That's all. But we get the constituents of these rules. So one is the Central Pollution Control Board, India's apex pollution control authority, has developed a web portal wherein the companies can register for compliance as to the compliance of the rules, the norms that the government has set up. So that is there. It can list as to what all they have done, what are the achievements, what are the shortcomings, all of that can come. So it will be in a centralized database. Next, battery waste management rules, like any other waste management rules, emphasizes on the concept of extended producer responsibility. Extended producer responsibility is a concept associated with circular economy. That is, the manufacturer produces, right? You can say distributor, it sells it. The product comes to an end of life cycle. Then the person is responsible for recycling into the life cycle and again get it back into production. So the entire life cycle, the economy associated with that, it is known as circular economy. Okay, so extended producer responsibility compliance. So this means that the companies who have sold these batteries, etc., they have to collect these batteries at the end of the day, and so they have to collect them and try to recycle it as well, or give it to somebody else who can recycle it. And the minimum is 15% of this lithium ion has to be recycled by 2027. So in its effort to promote circular economy, I just said it, I didn't read it that day, but yes. Those who do it, those who comply, they will get a 5-year certificate. Okay, it's fine. So these are the battery waste management rules. Basic parts of this, you are getting it. I think that's good enough. Otherwise, you can always refer to the PIP. Now, why are we doing it? So one is sustainability. Then this lithium ion is again difficult to procure. They are limited in resources. So if we are able to recycle, so it will help us save cost. In fact, 40% of the EV cost is coming from the battery alone. So that will really help us in recycling, will help us in driving down costs. Next, government approves 1650 crore for 75 lakh new PMUY connections over 3 years. Only thing important over here is PMUY, which is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, in which you get LPG connections. Not you, but the beneficiaries. It's not for everybody. Okay. Now, this is coming under Ministry of Petroleum. So only scheme that Ministry of Petroleum has is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, and that makes it important. So only welfare scheme that they have. Next, important, global debt fell as share of GDP in 2022, says IMF. IMF releases its World Economic Outlook, not mentioned over here, but I think it is part of World Economic Outlook. So it says that the debt to GDP ratio has fallen from 238 to 238% from 248%. Okay. So what does this indicate? Debt to GDP ratio is improved. That means borrowings. So this means the economy is improving, right? You're able to pay back the loans. So that is a good sign. Now, how is it important for India? Indian perspective, where are we on debt to GDP ratio? So our debt to GDP ratio has increased. It was 75.7% at the end of March 2022. What was March 2022? Lockdown came up. This increased to 89.6% at the end of pandemic year, at the end of pandemic year 2021. And then now it is at 84.5%, March 2022 end. So we are around 81%, 80% over here. Okay, so you can see in the graph also. So we are somewhere over here. It should be less. Previously, what is the recommended level of debt to GDP? So NK Singh committee, which reviewed the FRBM, which was to review the fiscal responsibility budget management. So they recommended, NK Singh recommended that debt to GDP ratio of 60% should be 60%, right? So debt to GDP ratio of 60% should be 60%. We are at 80% right now, and 40% of this should be for the center, 20% for the states, right? So that is important. Next, some more news is there. Lancet Commission. It's a not-for-profit organization which looks into the matters of healthcare. Very important, but you can quote this when you have to do some research or anything for your answer writing facts when you have to quote. So yes, they say that 2/3 of tuberculosis deaths occurred in the world, occurred in 8 countries. Of this, half of the deaths took place in India. Fine. So tuberculosis related deaths took place in India, and there is an increase in tuberculosis deaths. Now you should know about tuberculosis. So that is there. And what measures are the government taking to deal with the tuberculosis? So tuberculosis, it is caused by a Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So it is basically bacterium. It's given in the name itself. It takes, you have to take a cocktail of drugs, and I think a pre-question was asked with reference to the drugs used in tuberculosis treatment. Okay, so drugs have to be used and for a very long period of time. So many a times people give up on the medication, and because of this, they become drug resistant. So there is a higher form of tuberculosis, which is multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, MDR-TB.